I was interested in doing a simul tonight, and then maybe looking over three of the games that were played really quick. That's what I had in mind. But if anyone else prefers to do a different kind of lesson, happy to do that too. But I thought a simul might be fun for us all to give a shot. I was probably thinking we could do maybe, I guess as many people as probably are here, can challenge me to like a maybe 5 minute game, 5 minutes aside, and then we can take a look at like, or actually, you know what? Yeah, 5 minutes aside, and then we can take a look at maybe three of the games after all the games are finished. That's what I had in mind. But we can also do a more traditional thing if people are more interested in that. Plenty of stuff to go over. But I was thinking, I was thinking a simul and game analysis. Not sure who's here. Not sure exactly, how many people are going to be here, but thought that could be fun. And yeah, until people come in, I was doing another thing, which was I've been working with the FIDE Arena. Basically, the FIDE Arena is pretty interesting. FIDE Arena is the only way that you can play FIDE rated games online. Basically, in order to get a arena title, you need to play 150 rated games on the arena. So I was thinking that I would take a look and start off on here. I can play a few games, but mainly I wanted to just get some games for a simul going. So yeah, if anyone's interested in stopping by for a simul, we can do that. Caitlin and Jen are here. It's nice to see them. But yeah, hopefully some other people will show up and match me on chess.com. That's what I was thinking. Otherwise, I'm gonna keep working towards this goal that I have. Basically, it's getting 150 bullet games done in the arena. If you can do 150 bullet games in the arena above a rating of 2,000, you get the highest title that you can get on there. And hopefully they will, hopefully I will be able to do it. I've got 15 games left with a rating over 2,000 with about 80 points of room. I'm at 2081. But yeah. Well, I don't know. I like having you guys here. It's great. Okay, cool. Here's Aphelion. Aphelion's up on the board. Aphelion, if you want to match me at a 5-0 on chess.com, we can try to get a simul going. I was thinking maybe like somewhere between 3 and 5 games. But Aphelion is also on here for the hey, welcome, Amet. We're doing a simul, and then I was going to take a look at some of the simul games. I was doing a simul against anyone who matches me on chess.com. I was mainly just waiting for people to get here, but yeah, of course, no, of course, Amet. Challenge me to a 5-0 game, and then I was gonna play however many games come in, and then we can take a look at 3 of the games afterwards. Is what I had in mind. But yeah, if you match me on chess.com, Ted Belanoff, at 5 minutes 0 seconds increment, we can go from there. So yeah, feel free. I'm in live chess now. I was just playing. I was showing off what I was doing today as I'm going for my Arena GM title. I don't know. Hey, welcome, Aphelion. We were gonna do simuls 5 minute 0. Okay, cool. So I got a Mets, which is good, and then I was hoping for like maybe 2 to 4 more. I was thinking maybe 5 at once. Yeah, no worries. No worries. So a Mets is here. I'm gonna let this sit until we can get at least 2 more. But until all the challenges come in, I was gonna probably try to get on this. Cool. Yeah. No, that's great. That's great, Amet. No, you're on. Yeah, you're my friend on chess.com. I'm friends with a lot of people from the stream on chess.com. But yeah, no, totally. So I'm just gonna wait until there's somewhere between 3 and 5 games. I'll just start the simul when I get to 3, but I'll take any incoming challenges 5 minutes with 0 second increment that come in. And then until those come in, I was just gonna play I was gonna play on the FIDE Online Arena. FIDE Online Arena is the only place where you can play FIDE rated games on the internet. This is pretty cool, I think. And basically, you can earn yourself a FIDE title I'm 15 games away from a FIDE title. I worked all day on it today, and I'm 135 bullet games out of 150 games. So I'm just sort of trying to finish this up. But there aren't that many people online, so it's a little bit tricky. I'm a yeah, I'm hoping so. But yeah, Matt, yeah, see, but these ones are like this one here is an automated player, this 2600. So I've been aborting all those because they only count the ones that you play against like live people. But yeah, if anyone wants to, yeah, that's a bot, right? Exactly. But if anyone wants to challenge me to a 5-0 match on chess.com, I was going to start the simul as soon as I got 3. All right, cool. Here's Aphelion. But yeah, Aphelion and I were both we were both kind of working on getting our respective titles based on our bullet on chess.com or on the FIDE arena. But yeah, if anyone else wants to challenge me on chess.com in a 5-minute game, I was trying to get a simul going. We need at least 2 more people. Good game, Aphelion. 14 more. But yeah, if you want to challenge me, I don't know if you want to play in the simul, Aphelion, but if you challenge me to 5-0 on chess.com, I'll just let it sit until I get the 3rd. You don't have to. I mean, I'm just in case you're interested. So yeah, I've been playing kind of the same people. There's probably been about 10 different people online today on Arena, but in terms of overall rating, there aren't that many highly rated players. I spent most of the day kind of playing low rated, but you know they still count towards the 150 total that's needed. So that's sort of what I've been going for. Let's see. Yeah, and there's no pre-move. That is true. That is true. Bullet without pre-move is a little bit different for me, at least. I'm okay, but my goal is just I have a very specific rating goal that I need to get to, or I need to get to enough games. But yeah, okay, cool. So I've got one from Aphelion, and then as soon as I get my 3rd one, so it's on chess.com. If someone matches me with 5 minutes with 0 increment, I will start off the simul, and then once the simul starts, I can take more games if they come in. But I was thinking if anyone's interested in joining the simul. You can get the FIDE. There's 4 new titles that FIDE gives for online games, and I've known about this for a while, but I haven't put like the actual time into doing it until today. And I have I think 12 games left is how many. But a lot of yeah, basically FIDE Arena. This is a kind of a clunky interface, to be honest, but it's kind of an interesting one, at least. But it's the official one. This is like the most official of all the chess interfaces. This is actually the one that's technically the most official. Like this is the one that's supported by the international chess body. Okay, now down to 12. But yeah, one more. If one wants to play, yeah. So I was playing for the FIDE title. Just in case anyone's interested, this is what I was working on today. But if you look up FIDE Arena titles, you go to FIDE titles, and then you can see on here there's basically 12 titles that FIDE has. These are the open titles: GM, IM, FM, and CM. And then these are the women's titles, which are WGM, WIM, WFM, WCM. So basically the same 4 ranks as the male titles. But then you have this online title system, this arena titles. So no, that's what I'm saying. So you can be a titled player if you work hard enough on your online rating on the FIDE arena. You can get the FIDE title. You can get a FIDE title through the online arena. That's what I was working on today. I'm about 12 games away from it, it's been an interesting process. So yeah, these FIDE rated titles, 4 FIDE titles, I was just basically trying to kill time with that until people send their the third challenge. We're waiting for one more person to have a challenge. Yeah, no, it is. It's cool, right? I mean, it's pretty awesome that that you can get a free you can get a title on FIDE, and they're pretty rare too. Like these AGM titles, like that's a less common title than some of the others. If anyone wants to send another 5-minute game in, I was going to try to do a simul on chess.com. So if someone just wants to match me 5-0 on chess.com, we have Aphelions and Amets ready to go. But we need one more player. So if someone wants to challenge me on chess.com, we can get this started. And then I was thinking we could do a game review of the games that come in. But yeah, until that third one comes in, I was gonna play FIDE Online Arena Bullet. But yeah, if you want a FIDE title, you can get a FIDE title. That's how it is now. You can just get it. But I still need a third. 5-0 to get the thing. Yeah, AFM, AGM, AIM, for sure. Yeah, I was just getting the game count down. I'm still at like 140 games or something, or I think 138 out of 150. But yeah, if anyone wants to play on chess.com, just match me 5-0. I don't really mind too much whether it's rated or unrated. But I was hoping to get at least one more game on, and we can start the simul. If you match me, Jen, I'll play you. I think Jen tried to match and it wouldn't let her. I think that she needs like an established rating or something. But we need one more match, one more 5-0 to come in, and then we'll do it. It's pretty tricky to get enough games on here, to be honest. There are a lot of, basically they'll pair you against a bot after a minute or two. But we need one more chess.com challenge, and then we'll start the simul. Yep, one more chess.com. Waiting for a challenge. Waiting for the last challenge, and then we'll start the simul. I hope. Yeah, I mean, you guys can play unrated if you want. Or we could even skip your game at this point. This is taking longer than I thought to get a third player for the simul, but we'll get it. We just need one more. But until that starts, I'm gonna keep working on this project of getting my FIDE title. I can see your challenge. Here's your challenge. This is your challenge, Amet, and then this is Aphelion's challenge. We just need one more. How many games left? We need I think I need 12. I have 138 out of 150. Let's see when this one starts. When does this one start? Round 1 will start soon. This one starts in 8 minutes or so. Yeah, well, I was the most active person on there today. I just said I was gonna work all day and try to get the arena title, and I still have 12 games to go. I mean, I was doing other stuff too, but I kept trying to get all the live players. But I don't think so. I think you should ask them. Like, we should ask chess.com whether they'll make the arena titles, but I don't see why not. I mean, it's a legit FIDE title, so what's. I mean, there haven't been that many norm tournaments this year. I feel like they should make it a title. Then you can play on Title Tuesday. Get, like, an ACM title and ask to play in, Oh, yeah. No, there's so many bots on here. When I've been getting live players, it's been cool, but so far I've been waiting for live. Here's a so basically this is yeah, Matthew Perry was the default bot name. There's like a few. It's the same like 4 bots. They're 26 through 3000. But yeah, I need one more game for the simul, then we'll start the simul. If I don't get a third by 35 minutes after, then we'll just jump into then we'll just jump into the game analysis. But okay, cool. Yeah, I rated or unrated doesn't matter to me. But yeah, sure. Feel free to unrate it. Okay, cool. Here we go. We've got it. All right. So here's here we go. I was gonna stop this, and then Ashton is here, and then if anyone else wants to join, I'm just gonna go through and accept these challenges right now, and we're starting off. So three games at once, and if anyone else wants to come in and match, feel free to match. The match is 5-0. Cool.
Match me.
Yeah. Oh, I kept doing that thing. Kira was pointing this thing out to me where I'm playing the wrong move in the what is it called? I'm playing some weird non-Grunfeld move, thinking I'm playing the Grunfeld. But all right, I'm going for an aggressive attack on this one. If anyone else wants to match, feel free to match me. 5-0. Let's see. Need to be careful on these. If anyone else wants to send in a match, feel free. These are 5-0 time control. right, down to 2. Um, yeah, no worries. No worries, Aphelion. Would you like us to analyze your game? If you're, I was thinking I would do analysis of all 3, but only if you guys are interested, and also now we're a little bit more pressed for time. Are you interested in having a game analysis of that one, Aphelion, or do you want us to skip you? Either's completely fine. I just don't want to make you look, or I don't want to go. Okay, cool. We can go over the next one then. All right. No, it's cool. I think we have enough. So, that's okay. Yeah, no worries. Good game, Ashton. Thank you very much for joining the stream, and thanks for the challenge. Yeah, and then we're gonna do a game analysis of these games soon. Let's see. I'm hoping to get a good check on this bishop. Okay. All right. Good games, everybody. Thank you all for participating in that challenge. And I was gonna go through. A Mets game. Good game of Met, and good game Ashton. So so I figured, one of the things that might be helpful here is to just go over the games that we've just played. Since it took a little bit longer to get that started than I thought it was going to, we can just do an analysis of 2. I was thinking we could take a look at a Mets game and Ashton's game if you guys are interested. Let's take a look. But yeah, thanks all for challenging and for making that work. I think that was cool, interesting stuff. And yeah, we'll take a look. I was thinking Ashton's first, or no, let's do a Mets first. A Mets first and then Ashton, because the Mets challenge came in first. But yeah, so I'm playing white here. I play white, and a Met plays c5. I normally play open Sicilian, but here I was playing the closed Sicilian. I thought the closed Sicilian might be better for a simul. Plus, it's just nice to switch up openings sometimes. I'm gonna probably basically here I end up playing this this kind of open closed Sicilian. Oops, sorry. That was a little clumsy of me. But yeah, so I'm playing white here, and then it's the closed Sicilian, and then on the third move after d6, knight to f3. So it basically switches from being a closed Sicilian to the open Sicilian, or at least looking like it's going to. The closed Sicilian with knight to f3 is not necessarily so good. If knight to f3 is played, that's usually a pretty good indication that d4 is coming. Here, knight to f3 is the first most common move, even more common than the Grand Prix attack. But this is the closed Sicilian defense with 2d6. Black has a number of choices here. The main ones are knight to c6, knight to f6, e6, and a6. Basically, all of these are, so this happens a lot in the Sicilian, for sure. Closed Sicilian with knight f3, that's a pretty common structure. White has to decide whether to make it an open structure or keep it a closed structure, but this is fairly common. In this situation, I guess g6 is probably also playable. G6 is a dragon type structure. I don't think there's anything particularly incorrect about it. I think G6 is fine. For some reason it's played later, or basically it's played less commonly than the others. But I think that's mainly because I think that's mainly because g6 tends to be played even earlier in this opening. So on e4, e4, c5, knight c3, g6, I think might be more common. But here, this early g6, white's got a few different options. I play something that probably isn't correct. I play bishop to c4. Bishop to c4 actually might. I don't think it quite meets it, but it's probably incorrect. It's about a 10% a move that's played about 10% of the time, and it's a bishop to c4 played without without e5 having been played. Black can deal with this problem with the bishop to c4 on this diagonal facing f7 very easily. With d6 and d5, basically this structure will hold the white bishop back on this diagonal from a2 to g8. So that's big there. I don't think this is a good move for white. Instead of bishop to c4, d4, just straightforwardly opening up the Sicilian. This is probably white's most optimal play here. So bishop to c4, bishop to g7, and then with this opening having been made closed, castling is one of the more common moves. Engine and opening book are still pushing for d4, but I'm trying to keep this Sicilian closed here. So I'm probably never going to play d4. I wanted to play this d3 structure. We're still in opening book, by the way, so I don't think this is that bad, but it does seem to equalize for black. White has made no challenges directly to black. White's just sort of been working on his development. But yeah, basically, white's been kind of underwhelming. There haven't been any direct threats. There hasn't been all that much going on here, and moves like castles are just equal. The position is equal now, and it'll be equal as development continues on for both sides. Okay, so white plays h4. I think h4 is wrong. I was going with kind of the normal thematic thing where you basically play attacks on the king side in the Sicilian game. But overall, h4 is not really well placed here. Black can deal with this threat very easily with bishop to with h6. Then white just has to retreat the bishop, probably to e3, possibly to d2. But yeah, black's showing a 1-point advantage here, so Amet's winning by a point. And bishop to e3 is not really, such a great diagonal. So I don't know. b5, bishop b3, b4. White's doing fine. I think that this sort of transitioned in a questionable way. I think b4 didn't really do much. b4 doesn't really advance black's position here, so we should really be taking this from black's perspective. Right. Yeah, so no, I like the idea of playing on the queen side, for sure. But I think that maybe after e6, that could be good. Or potentially h6 first. The engine is saying h6, because h6 basically pushes the bishop off of this diagonal. With h6, the bishop is either forced to take bishop takes f6, or, which is not very good for white. So this is not something that black should be worried about. He just plays bishop takes f6 back, and then has a bishop on the fianchetto, and white has no real way to advance the attack or anything. So h6 is what the engine was saying here. Basically, with h6, the bishop is either forced to make an unfavorable trade or go to a worse diagonal. So that's why h6 is getting proposed as a move. b5 makes sense, but b4 basically kind of takes away the the pressure on this bishop. After knight to d5, I think white's fine. Knight takes d5 isn't particularly playable, and now I would probably play h6, knight takes f6, e takes f6. But this leaves black with some kind of loose pawns. Playing in the center is not going to be so easy for black. He's going to play knight to c6, but then the bishop's going to go to d5. So I'm thinking that that b4 kind of releases pressure instead of applies more pressure. I'm thinking instead maybe I don't know. I like bishop to g4 actually. Bishop to g4, and then threats along the lines of knight to c6, knight to c6, and knight to d4. I think that might end up being a better idea for black. This bishop on g4 facing the queen on d1. This is a very strong developing square for that bishop. Made particularly strong also because h3 can't be played. h3's gone. Basically just h4 instead. But this pin of this bishop on f3 and d1. This ends up being better for black. b4, knight d5, and there's a good response. Knight e2 is incorrect. The correct move for white was knight to d5. Black's knight can't take here. So that would have been a better move for white. But black is winning. Black's up 0.37. Although the engine keeps pushing for h6. Yeah, no. It makes. I mean, it's interesting. So yeah, Matt. I mean, hopefully it's helpful to go through this. But I think this queenside expansion is good. I just think you have to do it in a really precise way. Also, the engine has been very consistent about advocating h6. h6 pushes bishop to either trade on f6, which is a bad trade for black, or a bad trade for white, a good trade for black, or go to bishop to e3 where it's not really doing anything. If then queen to d2, after bishop to e3, then you play king h7 and defend the h6 pawn that way. So that's a little better for for black than playing b4. With b4, the tension gets relieved to some degree. Okay, now you play h6. Great. So h6 was there for a while, but I'm sure that the engine is happy that you played it now. Basically with h6, this bishop is forced to make choose between two kind of bad options. I take on f6, and we're about equal. This is sort of the situation that is about equal. But I'm gonna try to assemble an attack on the king side. h5 seems to be white's best tactical resource. Bishop takes b7, rook to g1, and then pawn takes g6. This pawn and this bishop work together to apply a pretty strong threat on f7. e6, g takes, and then bishop takes, and then I think the situation's pretty good for white. Although I did make an error here. What happened? White was up by about 8, but then simplified. It was actually a much better line for white here to play things like d4 and get the rook over to f3. That's what the engine is seeing. That's what's advocated as the best move for white. But yeah, so I think that's fairly straightforward. This endgame again was a little bit rough, but overall I think that white got a really good. Basically, black had a good situation as late as move, as late as move 10 or so. Black is definitely better. It's not really until b4 and that white can establish threats on the king side that black loses his advantage. So yeah, the really key part of this was recognizing this tactic on king to g8. I think at the end of the day, I think that's mostly just about tactical prep. Like, I think if you've done 1,000 of these puzzles that are all kind of working along this bishop diagonal line, I think you'll end up seeing a better situation. Here, this is problematic for black. So I think that that missing that this was a pin, if instead black plays g5, equality is more or less maintained. So that was the error here. This attack on b2 may go away. White may play c3. No, I mean, don't worry about it, Amet. No, I think it's a really good game. I hope it's helpful to go through it. The goal is to try to make this into a helpful lesson. But yeah, I think this is just tactical stuff at the end of the day. I think your opening was good. I think you played a really good response to kind of a questionable Sicilian. White plays a questionable Sicilian with bishop to c4 being played before e5. So yeah, I think you were doing just fine out of the opening. It wasn't until basically at this point black is looking fine. I think an improvement for black is probably bishop to d7, a5, a4, and black is okay. So Yeah, the main tactical miss, the decisive tactical miss was missing that this bishop was facing this king. Um, uh, yeah, I mean, I think that white sort of needs to attack aggressively. White needs to basically play aggressively on the king side, and black. So white's thematic plan in this game is to attack aggressively on the king side, and black's goal is to attack aggressively on the queen side. And I think that that's mainly, that's the main point of this game. I think the move that got missed as a tactical resource for black was h6. Pressing this bishop into either trading on f6 or moving to bishop to e3. Forcing that choice is a good thing for black to do. If bishop to e3, queen d2, king h7. But basically with h4, which effectively limits this this bishop's mobility. So basically, on h6, bishop to h4 is no longer available. White has voluntarily given that space up. H6 provides a good option and forces white in between two kind of inferior continuations. So in terms of improving this game, I would play an earlier h6. This causes the most problems for white. And then basically securing the accuracy of this tactic. This pawn takes g6. This is a threat that white might have in a kingside attack. So always be wary of the bishop on c4. The bishop's not really supposed to be on c4 in the Sicilian for white, but in this case it was. So it's an easier threat to miss, is what I'm saying, basically, in a situation where it's not really supposed to be there. Anyways, good game. Very interesting game, Ahmet. Thank you very much for playing. I would say the way to improve this game, I thought your opening was just fine. I would play h6 earlier. Thank you very much for participating, Ahmet. I'm happy to hear that you think it's helpful. And thank you very much for playing in the small simul. I think I'm going to do this a little bit more in the future. I think this is kind of a good way to give really personalized lessons. I'm hoping that this is helpful. So thank you very much, Matt, for participating in that. And we'll do it again sometime. I hope you'll be interested in stopping by the next time we try this. Cool. We were going to look at one more. We were going to look at Ashton's game. Ashton, I think, was playing white, right? I'm just pulling this up. So Ashton plays white, the game goes into Queen's Gambit. I think I might have clicked the challenge button by accident. So this game is basically Ashton is playing white, plays d4, and I do something which Kiro was pointing out earlier, but for some reason I keep doing this. It's not a good idea. It's not a strong idea. The correct move here is g6, and then transposing it into the Grunfeld with d5. But I played d5 immediately. This is wrong, not the correct move. This is the Marshall defense, and it's pretty underwhelming for white, to be honest. In this situation, white has a number of, this is pretty underwhelming play by black. Underwhelming to play against as white. White matches with knight to c3, knight takes, pawn takes, knight d7. And basically here, white's got an advantage of about 0.8, and black has played unnecessarily bad opening strategy. I'm really going to have to teach myself to get out of the muscle memory of playing d5. I keep playing d5, and it doesn't really make any sense. I should be playing g6 and then d5. I don't know why I'm playing d5 first. It's important to play g6, because otherwise white doesn't have the opportunity to play knight to c3. So I don't know why I keep doing that. But it's good. It's helpful for me to kind of think about what I should edit in my games. Okay, so we're out of the opening theory, so we don't really have the opening theory to lead basically to lead our to be a good guideline. So I think e4 is an error. E4 hangs this d4 pawn, or this e4 pawn. Knight can just take it. I didn't take it. I should have. This pawn is hanging, but I guess I missed this. So I instead played queen to a5. After queen to a5, e5, and white has complete control of the center. This looks really good for white, actually. Queen takes c3 is met by bishop to d2, and then there's a double attack, both the bishop d2 on c3 and the e5 bishop on f6. So yeah, but White has basically regained the lead, but needs to play e5. So the primary the primary error in this game, I think, is White being, first White playing e4, but basically White not being cautious enough with the defense of his e4 pawn. He needs to play like e5. I think a better, basically in an opening like this, don't play e4 if knight can take e4. If you want to challenge and play e4, then set it up first with queen to c2 and then play e4, and then the pawn is defended. I think this is a good step forward for White. I think this will be helpful. Queen to d3, e4 also works. Just something on this diagonal, something that supports e4. Okay, e4, queen, but Black misses it anyways. So all right, so Black misses it, and Black continues to miss this. I don't know what Black. I'm the one who played Black. I don't know how I continue to miss e4 being hanging, but I do. So, and then this was a tactical. This tactically got to be good for Black here. Gotta watch out for these tactics. Bishop takes, and then the correct move is bishop takes f3, but bishop e2 is an error. Black or White really needs to retreat his bishop to either e3 or bishop to d2. If he plays bishop to e2, then bishop takes f3, and this bishop on g5 is hanging. So, yeah, that was a mistake. That was a mistake for White. And then this sort of becomes difficult for White to play against. But in terms of improving this game, White is up after this. Black should not be playing the immediate d5. Black should be playing g6 and then d5. d5, knight takes d5, not good for Black. There's not a reason why Black should be playing this. Knight to c3, compared to e4, I like e4 here. One of the main advantages that basically it's helpful for Black to be able to play knight takes c3 in the Grunfeld. It's a good way to trade off that piece, and it does end up giving White in kind of interesting but consistent pawn structure with e4, d4, and c3. So yeah, in this opening, Black needs to play g6 before he plays d5. I don't know why I keep doing that, but it's not good for me, so I need to iron that out of my game. White is looking fine. Basically White's up 0.8, 0.6, something like that. Something pretty good. And everything's going fine until e4. So, I guess my takeaway from this is that, e4 is a move in the Grunfeld, but it's a move played in the Grunfeld when it's not vulnerable. White needs to defend e4 if he wants to play e4. Playing e4 in isolation, you need to get it off of the hanging square. But both White seem to be missing on e4. Also failed to see that the pawn was hanging on e4. So, I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, e4 is less bad if Black isn't able to capitalize on the mistake. But I definitely think I am making an error. I should be playing pawn takes e4. So yeah, in this game, multiple opening errors by Black, missing the e4 and playing 2d5 as opposed to 2g6 and then 3d5. And then here, White needs to kind of get into a good position tactically. Probably play queen to b3. Queen to b3 threatens b7, so if on knight e4, then queen takes b7. But bishop e2 hangs this pawn on, or this bishop on g5. So yeah, walking away from this situation, what I would say is that just be be careful, be cautious, and do your tactics prep. When I see like rook to c1, bishop to g4, this is a tactic that you should basically see that this queen is attacking this bishop, and then if this knight gets traded off on the next move, queen takes bishop is going to be available for Black. That is important. I mean, this is tactical vision that I think is going to come up very frequently in practical games. So I think that at the end of the day, everyone needs to study their tactics, myself included. But I think that really being disciplined and seeing combinations like this is something that's really going to help your game. Many people don't get that far in their chess. They don't put the focus study into improving tactically. But basically, this vision, queen takes g5, and bishop takes f3, eliminating the defense on g5. Together, that should be tactical vision that white should see. And with enough tactics practice, it definitely will be. So that's my main suggestion there. I think that basically, everything's going fine, really. White's up 0.8. But the piece needs to be defended, and these tactics need to kind of be seen. The best way to do it is just to keep pushing forward with the tactical study. 1 to 2 hours a day for a month of, Chess Tempo, Chess.com Puzzle Battle, Chess.com Puzzle Rush. Basically, any tool that you would like to use to do tactics prep. But it is important to put the time in. So yeah. Anyways, Jen made these new emotes. I think they're awesome. I like the derp corgi that Caitlin's put on there. But yeah, all of those. It really does come down to tactics at the end of the day, and that's where to spend time. So interesting. Thought that was interesting stuff. Appreciate you guys being willing to be in the simul, and I think that gives. I hope that's helpful, and I think that gives a good a good place to look forward in terms of improving your games. We all need to improve our tactics, myself included. But I think the returns that you will see will be pretty good if you're coming at it from a from a class player's level. So yeah, very interesting stuff. Thank you guys for playing in that simul. That was fun. Yeah, that was cool. I like that. Awesome. All right, on to our 3 games for analysis. How do you start the arena or thing that gets the online title? Good question. Good question. It's just it's FIDE Online Arena. But yeah, FIDE Online Arena, and you're gonna get basically the rules are this. They say Arena Grandmaster, highest online title. A series of 150 bullet games, 100 blitz games, or 50 rapid games with rating over 2,000. So basically you go on there. You can ask Aphelion. Aphelion just got set up on there too. I've been on there for a few months, but I never really had played actively on it. But you basically need to get a certain number of games with a performance rating of over their thresholds. So for Candidate Master, 1,100. For AGM, 2,000. But you can get a fully legitimate FIDE title by playing enough games on that interface. I worked on it today. I played a bunch of games, but you can you can get full title FIDE titles on there if you're interested. Should be cool. No, get yourself a FIDE title. Why not? I didn't have any, so I'm gonna try to get mine by the end of today. But yeah, no. That's the thing. Ask. Aphelion's working on it too. You could ask him. But he's working on this project as well. Maybe I'll post a link to it in the Discord. But yeah, cool. Yeah, no. I think you'll see. If you study, I think you can get an ACM title, the FIDE full FIDE title. All right, here's Sam Sejuani's game. Sam Sejuani basically is playing knight f3. His opponent plays an early. Whoa, what are those? I know the second two, Jen. I know that's Gengar and Mewtwo, but I don't know what the first one is. It's like a frog guy or something. What is that? I don't recognize the first of those 3 Pokemon. All right. So white here basically plays knight f3. The correct move is knight to c6, or if black wants to play the Petrov's d6, or if black wants to play the Philidor d6. But yeah, knight to f3, and this bishop to c5 is not considered to be a particularly playable move here. So this is failing that test that we were talking about. If it's less than 1%, played less than 1% of the time, in this case it's 15 out of 250,000, so way less than 1%. Yeah, but and then if it also moves the eval more than half a point against you. Here, this moves at about 0.9 against you. So this should be a move that Black takes out of his opening repertoire. Black should not be playing a move based on that criteria that we were talking about, the engine analysis and the opening book. Knight takes e5. Why not? Because it's hanging. I mean, seems like a good move to me. d4, knight b6, and yeah, white's way ahead. White's already up +3. This was not a good way to play this opening for black. Knight to c3, knight to c6, and then now knight to d5. Knight to d5 is better. Knight to d5 checks the queen, basically. The queen has to go somewhere uncomfortable after this, either to d8 or to d6. But now that this is done, this basically, this ends up being a good fork for white on d5. So knight to f3 instead, knight to f6, bishop d3. White's just going with solid development, but I think that knight to d5 was a more pressing thing for white here. So knight to d4, castles, knight takes, queen takes, c5. White's doing fine. And yeah, white's up about 2.5 pawns, looking solid. Ideas for white in this game, black has a fractured pawn structure and is down a pawn. I think ideas for white could include e5, they could include pressure on h7, maybe rook e2, rook e1, e5, that could work. But yeah, with bishop to g4, bishop takes f6 is a great tactic, exactly right. Except the follow-up move is not queen takes f6, which is fine. It's actually queen takes g4. So yeah, so this I think was a missed tactic for white. An improvement in this game would definitely be bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, and then queen takes g4. Black might play bishop takes f2, but then you play king h1, then you play rook take e1, and white's fine. White's winning. But this is also fine. White's still winning in this case too. Now black has an even more fractured pawn structure. Four pawn islands total. Knight takes. And yeah, that was an error, I think. Rook f2 onto rook h7. That seemed to play out badly for white. And yeah, checkmate. Good stuff. All right, so places for improvement for white. Black misplays the opening, pretty seriously. An improvement here would be knight to d5. With knight to d5, you're outposting the knight with tempo. So this queen has to move. There's no way to not move this queen on e7. So yeah, knight to d5 over knight to f3 here. You can get the free move of knight d5. Basically, there's no way that black can respond with anything that disrupts you here. The queen's just got to move from e7 immediately. So knight to d5 is better than knight to f3. On d5, queen takes, c5, basically bishop to f4. It's viewed as the best development. Pawn takes c6 I don't think is terrible. This sort of makes sense, but I think you can just ignore it. Also, there are things about this pawn on c5 that aren't helpful to black. Like, honestly, this bishop's now blocked off on this diagonal, and this queen is blocked off on this diagonal. So between those two, c5 seems to be limiting black's mobility. Instead, with pawn takes c6, this is better for, this ends up being better for white. So I think that you don't want to trade this off. This c5 doesn't really make sense as a move. It's messing up the mobility of too many of black's pieces. So you're actually sort of helping black in removing what was an error for him. Just leave it there. Just play like bishop to g5, continue your development as white, and don't help out black unnecessarily by playing pawn takes c6. Bishop takes f6, and then the tactical move is queen takes g4. And then white's up a good amount here, just materially. Bishop takes f2, king h1, bishop takes e1, rook takes e1, and white is up 2 pieces to a rook, so it's fine. But then, after that, the game basically plays out well for white. I don't think there's much here. This is basically just white exploiting a really bad pawn structure. Let's see. Rook to e2 is a mistake. Rook to g3 can be played, and this rook is pretty far into to white's territory. But yeah, white's looking fine. No issues. So front to back, things to improve on here. Knight to d5 is better. Not playing pawn takes c6 is better. Things like bishop g5, bishop f4, rook e1, those are better alternatives for white. C5 basically blocks off squares for black. Bishop takes, queen takes, and white's looking fine. So, anyways, interesting, good way of white for converting it, but those were the improving moves. Knight to d5, checking the queen, that looks good. Yeah, and then white's just basically fine. Rook to h7 looks good, and white is fine. Cool. So, on to the next game. Alright, this is Determined Vision's game. Alright, so yeah, Petrov's defense. Petrov's defense, oh, this is a full Stanton gambit. So white's going to have a pretty easy time of things here. The Stanton gambit is not particularly playable. d4 I think is better than bishop to e2. Instead, I would probably play d3. h3 is fine, f3 is fine. And this bishop by itself is not going to be sufficient to attack f2. I think playing things like queen to e2 could be good, f3 could be good, and just don't let the knight in, basically, is the main point. Bishop e2 is an idea to do that, but runs into queen to d4. Queen to d4 castles, and then ideas like knight takes e4, knight takes e4, and white ends up better. So, yeah. Queen takes, g5, and white's good. So yeah, white's fine here. Queen to b7, cool. But yeah, the improvement, Stafford Gambit, white's looking good. I think that probably h3 or f3 would be better here. But white's looking fine. Basically he's up 2 pawns here. And this is an error. The tactical maneuver here for black is bishop takes c3, pawn takes c3, and then rook to h5, and then the rook getting over to g5 causes white major problems on the queen side. Basically the Stafford Gambit has shown itself to not be a sound maneuver. This is not really that strong for white or for black. There was never an effective attack, and not really much of a way of black getting too much practical compensation here. White's up about 2 pawns, but whatever. I mean, this the opportunity that black had was actually bishop takes c2, castles, rook e1, and then bishop takes c2, pawn takes c2, rook to h5. And here, black is down, 0.3 or something. Worse here. Or black is better here. After bishop takes f2, black is way worse. So black instead plays bishop takes f2. I think this is an unsound tactic, and I think the game basically ends after that. There's slight movement in both directions after that, but that's fine. So, how could white improve? White kind of had a relatively steady game. In terms of playing better moves as white here, castling queenside was probably incorrect. This seemed to worsen white's king safety. Instead, bishop takes c7, takes a hanging pawn, and this bishop never has any problems, can go back immediately to bishop to g3. But yeah, castles, whatever. And queen takes f2, queen takes f2, and white's up by about 5 pawns here. Things look good. But yeah, white's way up. White continues to be way up, and cool. Yeah, that's great. That's great, Random. I think it's about $40 for a year or something, or 40 euros if I remember correctly. I'm gonna see. I'm actually really curious. We'll have a really cool thing to look at, Amet. As soon as I get my title, which hopefully I'll get it, or hopefully I'll meet the threshold for my title tonight. I don't know what that's gonna look like on my screen, but hopefully it'll be like a. I don't know. We'll see. That we'll know after I get my title, my arena title or whatever, what it actually looks like when you get a title. But I'm actually happy to move forward on this project. I don't know what sort of spurred me on to thinking about this, but figured I might as well, right? Anyways, in terms of improving this game for white, I think that white played pretty well. Stafford Gambit is not very objectively good. It can be fun, but not particularly good. And I think castling queenside was an error. Castling queenside was also an error for black, but on rook to e1, bishop g5 is much better for white. So I guess that in terms of moves, the opportunities that white played, starting. Actually, not yet. Bishop to g5 is not yet playable. Bishop takes c7 is playable here. But castles queenside, bishop to e6, and here bishop to g5 is completely playable. It secures this diagonal. And then after castles queenside, which is basically a move that shifts this game about a point and a half, bishop to g5 is a skewer that wins an exchange. So here, really, bishop to g5 should have been seen. So at the end of the day, there were two threats. The main improvements for white I see in this game are two threats missed by this bishop. The first was bishop takes c7 on move 11, and the second was bishop to g5 on move 13. So after bishop to g5, this skewer holds, basically threatens rook to d8, and white's looking fine. This is good for white. So yeah, that was an error for black, or basically an error for white to not capitalize on that. Black ends up losing material for, basically loses material and doesn't really do much there. But yeah, white's just better after here, and things sort of continue. White wins. But yeah, I think white played pretty solidly. The Stafford Gambit made life really easy for white. There were two tactical misses by white, both bishop takes c7 and bishop to g5, that would have been material winning for white and would have improved white's game. So overall, interesting stuff. Really interesting. Thank you very much for sending the game to Determined Vision. I really liked seeing the game. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time to send the game, and hope that was helpful. On to the last game of tonight. This is Katie's game. Let's look. I just want to make sure that I have the right game for Katie. I think she wrote me something on this, so just want to make sure. Let's see. Yeah, I hope I didn't miss something on this. Anyways, I'm just gonna go through the game. I'm worried that I missed something that was specific to this game, but we will see. All right. Well, in any case, I guess that's that. All right. Let's take a look at Katie's game. Katie plays d4 and Black plays g6. Yeah, so I like this a lot. I think this is the correct way to play against g6. If Black's not making any attempts for the center, you should take the center. Basically, you're now playing a large center opening against a flank opening, and that should definitely be good for white. Here, I guess I would say c4 continues this opening expansion in probably the most effective way. c4, knight c3, bishop e3, knight f3, and white's good. So, yeah, white's doing fine here. I think instead knight to e2 is probably better. Queen to d2 is also better, but white's good. This, basically you haven't overextended, you've played pieces to natural squares, and now this game's going to become about attacking aggressively on the king side. I think thematically here, Black is looking for a kind of break in the center. I don't know how he's going to do this exactly. Maybe knight to b4 and then c5. Maybe d5 immediately, but I'm not sure. Because then white can play e5 and be in a pretty good French-type position. But white's theme is definitely going to be attacking on the king side. I would do it with h4. I always play h4, h5 before I play bishop to h6. h4, h5 before bishop to h6. You want to basically play, you want to have your queen supporting or your rook on h1 supporting the queen on h6 immediately after the queen moves to h6. So I think these pawn moves should come before bishop to h6, just thematically here. Okay, knight takes d4. This one's up to you. Knight takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop to g5 is considered to have a very good eval for white. Maybe you can reroute the... So what the engine is saying here is knight takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop to g5. And then actually I think king g7 approach is forced. If you don't play king g7 here, I think the bishop can reroute to f6, and then the queen can play to h6. And this gets extremely dangerous for Black. So I think instead, h4 is quiet and intuitive. I have no problems with h4, but that's what the engine was suggesting. Knight takes d4 here, and then bishop to g5 and bishop to f6. But yeah, h4, sure. And white's doing fine. Yeah, this attack is going very successfully. It's about 10 points. Sure. Yeah, white wins. Nicely done. Good job for white. And let's go back. So d4, g6, e4. The best continuation on this idea was c4. Make sure that you've really got good control of the center here. F3 is quiet. There's not really anything going on that makes F3 the move to play. F3 has some weaknesses as well. F3 restricts this knight going to the most natural developing square. It also doesn't really help in the center. So I think c4, knight c3, bishop to d3, bishop to e3. Developing moves are good. The center moves that the pawn moves that you should be making look more like c4, which seizes more of the center, and less defensive like f3. There's nothing really wrong with f3, it's just quieter than you should be playing right now. Black's given you an excellent opportunity to take control of almost all of the center, so with c4, I think you're really in a good place. f3, bishop e3, and white's doing fine. Bishop d3 they're calling inaccurate. The bishop d3 hangs this pawn on d4. So you can't play bishop to d3 this way. You have to find a defense for the pawn on d4. The pawn ends up getting taken on d4 later, but I think maintaining a better defense on d4 is important. Here I'd play h4, h5, and then bishop to h6. This all looks fine. Yeah, I think this is a great attack. Good solid idea, and good execution. rook takes h7 leads to a mate in 7, I guess. Looks a bit complicated, but should be doable. Like, let's just look. It's rook to h7, rook to h7, rook to h7, king to g8, bishop to c4, d5, bishop takes, queen takes, I guess, then queen takes, and white's fine. No issues for white in this situation. So yeah, I guess what I would say is f3. So there's a few improvements. Basically, looking at this game all the way through, f3 is defensive and blocks this knight from a natural developing square. c4, seizing more of the center, is the correct pawn move. Playing a defensive pawn move when your pawn's not being attacked doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. c4 is much better here. So f3, knight to c6, e6, knight to c3, and all of this is looking fine. No problems. Bishop d3 is a big error, though. On bishop to d3, this d4 pawn is hanging, and this, that it runs into a big tactical problem. You don't want to lose the d4 pawn for nothing. You want to make sure that it stays supported. So I think d5 is probably better, but bishop to d3 blocks off that threat on d4. So yeah. Castles, bishop e7. With castling, or with bishop h6, you're hanging d4. So I just think h4, h5 is a better way to go about this. I think after bishop to d4, you've lost the pawn. Obviously, you've got great chances on the king side, but I don't know. I guess, I mean, maintenance over d4 isn't like extremely important, but it is something that you would want to retain, all things equal. And yeah, this ends up being a win for white. Good stuff at the end of the day. Where your improvements were in a few specific places. Improvements were on c4 as opposed to f3. Not bishop to d3, because you need to maintain defense on d4. And yeah, and basically I would say bishop h6 was a bit early there. Not the wrong idea, but early. I would go with h4, h5 before playing bishop to h6. The engine also finds that silly line of bishop to g5, but overall here I think that the white is the white is better off with h4, h5 getting played. Anyways, interesting game, interesting situation, and yeah, looks good for white. Looks like a good conclusion for white, and yeah, thanks very much for sending the game. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for sending the game, Katie. Thanks for joining the stream. And I think I'm gonna kind of wrap it up a little bit early tonight. I really want to get that title. So yeah, so that's I think a good place to leave it. My next stream is at 8 a.m. Eastern tomorrow morning. I'm looking forward to seeing all you guys there. And yeah, that's the plan. So thanks very much for being here. Thanks very much for contributing your games and interest to the stream, and really appreciate it. Thanks. I'll see you guys later. Next stream is at 8 a.m. Eastern tomorrow morning. And yeah, plenty more games, plenty more material coming up. Awesome. Thanks a lot for joining. I'll see you later. Thanks. Bye.